Steve Sipple.
Hey!
The conversation gets even more uncomfortable, okay?
Omaha!
Steve Sipple on the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
All right, we're joined now on the 42 Degrees Source hotline by our good friend Stephen M. Sipple of HuskerOnline.com. Sipple, hello, happy Friday. How are you?
Fine. Thanks for adjusting. I know the high maintenance part gets kind of old, but I appreciate it. I really do.
Sipple, I never pegged you as a high maintenance guy, but here you are, mixing up our times and things like that. What's going on?
I do it in other shows too. It's really annoying. I get caught in these jams. It seems like a lot, and I thought I could maybe do the regular time, but it would have been rushed and there would have been some people around that didn't need to hear stuff, so we're good.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate you making time for us, no matter what time it is.
Thank you, Honor.
Did you receive a postcard in the mail yet?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Hold on. I did. It's nice.
What did you? Give me a brief description.
Yeah. Hold on. That's in my book bag. I have to make clear to you that I'm not your father.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not what the postcard says.
No, it says your son. He signed your son. It's alarming when I get those. You know my past. Not another one. Let's see here. Yeah, I must have said. Yeah. Anyway, I did get it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You
did it. You followed through. I was impressed by the follow through because a lot of people say, "Yeah, I'll send you." Yeah, right. Never comes. But there it was.
You were the only person that I bought a souvenir for. I was there back-to-back weekends, and you were the only person I brought back anything for.
Wife
didn't do it.
Listening.
I didn't bring her anything.
It's interesting. Yeah, you don't. I've been through that. You don't have to necessarily.
No, especially if you're going somewhere for like the 5th, 6th, whatever time, like you could get away with it.
Wait a second. You've been to Vegas 5 or 6 times?
Yeah, that's a good estimate. Yeah, 5 or 6 probably, yeah.
Happer, you're like a regular. I haven't been there since I was 20 or 19, maybe even sub 20. I think it was sub 20.
You got to get to a Raiders game down there.
Maybe. I do have a good friend there who always says you should come and stay. Be really low maintenance. Just come, no pressure. Just do your simple thing. I should take her up on that.
She says you could just come down and do your Sipple thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we all know what that means. So that's.
Well, I mean, it just means unconventional, maybe a little bit.
Well, yeah, you're a bit of a free spirit, you like to walk around, see the sights, talk to people, and get a real lay of the land.
Yeah. All right, what's the sports? What are we talking about sports today? What's the deal?
There was Matt Rule said a lot of things this week.
He did.
He talked about quarterbacks, and he also talked about offensive line. Let's do offensive line with you.
Okay.
So depth is something that it feels like they have. I think more importantly, they have guys now, and it's funny because it's mostly the same guys from last year. If you just think about it in this context, Sipple, year over year, how you feel about the offensive line now, how you felt about them 1 year ago. How big of a difference is that?
Well, I hope it's significant. It's one thing to have depth. It's another to have good depth. Guys that really can play. There's always going to be some guys around, but can they play? And it appears, Rule covered that pretty well yesterday. In fact, in talking about some of the second tier, third tier guys, kind of, there was some revelation because, for instance, he was asked, who are the second tier guys? Sam asked him, Sam McEwen, who are the second and third tier guys that are pushing? And the first guy he named was Mike Mazuka. And that was sort of revealing that he's not regarded as a starter right now, even though he says, he started at Baylor and he started at Florida. I imagine he's brought in here to start, hasn't claimed a job yet. He would be a guard. Then there's some guys that he mentioned that were interesting, like Evans, Justin Evans. It's no longer.
He took off the Jenkins?
Yeah, it's just Justin Evans.
Oh.
Donovan Raiola sort of made sure, so he quickly pointed it out. But anyway, Evans, he mentioned him as a backup center, but as a starting guard. I think Evans will start at guard. I really think that. But he's capable center. Latovsky's a guy that kind of floats in the conversation. I think Latovsky has a good chance to start at guard, but it's not. That's where the Mazuka thing comes in. I think. I mean, I don't know exactly how they're doing the left guard, right guard right now, but Latovsky would have a chance to start at a guard. But he's also a backup tackle, which Rule mentioned. He mentioned Tyler Knack, who came last spring and was a ways away. I mean, he was a ways away from, I thought, just sizing up their drills. He just didn't. His body didn't look ready to me at all. Well, apparently he's doing pretty well now, and he'd have a shot. Who else did he mention? I can't remember off the top of my head who else he mentioned. He mentioned a couple other guys, and it was sort of actually interesting who he didn't mention. Although I don't want to go too far into that, and I shouldn't even say it's interesting, because here's what happens on radio to writers and coaches at podiums. We hinge on their every word, and sometimes they just forget, just forget in the moment to name a Sam Sledge or a Gunnar Gatula or Knutson. He just, maybe they didn't come to his mind. Doesn't mean anything except they didn't come to his mind. But I think back to your original point, I do think there's pretty good depth there. Pretty good depth.
Yeah, and I think the bigger picture maybe is, like I said, I mean, year over year, some of the same guys are back from that group last year. It almost feels like I don't know if development, like if you can really see the full scale of the development over a year, but there's a lot of good case studies. Let's use Bryce Benhart as one of them. There's a lot of good case studies of like, hey, they took that guy who nobody thought really much of, and he turned into a pretty dependable player last year.
Yeah, he's probably their best lineman last year. I mean, at least if you look at Pro Football Focus grades, he was their high. He graded the highest, and I thought he did play well. He's certainly a kid who's transformed his body. That's the thing that really stands out when you go to practice. He looks like an NFL tackle. He really does. I mean, 6'9", 315, and I can't believe there's much body fat at all. He's really, really a good-looking player now, and I think he will have a chance to play in the NFL. Just in part because there's just not many 6'9", 315-pound guys that look like that. His arms aren't long. And seriously, I'm not joking around on that. He does have kind of alligator arms. That's going to be an issue. But we'll see what kind of season he had. He did have a good season. On the other side, Prohaska, you would think now it's a matter of repetition, staying healthy. I think he'd have a chance to be very good. You feel good about the tackles. You feel really good about the center. Ben Scott, who's he's a veteran player. I mean, there's just no excuses. He played pretty well last year. And I do like Justin Evans a lot. I just wonder who the other guard is. That's what I think, you're in that conversation at guard. It's Evans and Mazuka and Latovsky. I think those are the main ones. And how it shakes out, I don't know. I think you could, at some point, you wonder about Corcoran, although he has a green jersey on. You could play him at guard or tackle, which is probably what, probably end up doing. You might play him at both. Mm-hmm. But so, yeah, you go through all those guys and you feel pretty good. You feel pretty good about it.
What's your takeaway from the first couple of weeks here of what you've gotten from the quarterback situation? You got the 30 minutes to kind of watch, and you don't have to have too crazy of opinions on that period, but everybody seemed to come away pretty impressed with Kalen. Doesn't have to mean anything yet, but I guess what have you taken away from the first couple weeks of this quote unquote battle here?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I am about to say just comes from what I hear. And I did see that period that you're referring to, and I was grateful. I mean, I was really grateful that the coach let us see a team going 11 on 11 and trying to move the ball down the field. against a defense that was, blitzing and doing the things they do. And it was informative. It was really intense. I will say that. And I do think those young quarterbacks handled it really well. Both of them. And I think they're probably playing pretty well. Here's the thing though, Happer, they're going to scrimmage on Saturday, and they practice all the time, and they do a lot of live stuff because Rule is really interesting that way. He lets them go. He really does. As much as anybody I've ever seen. I mean, they play football. It's like Saturday. We kind of made a big deal of this past Saturday. They didn't scrimmage. Well, you come to find out, they really did a lot of hitting. I mean, they did some. It wasn't, you wouldn't call it official scrimmaging, but they tackle to the ground and they hit. They do a lot. It is really interesting the way he approaches it. And I think the kids love it. I think he's very mindful of having the kids out there I shouldn't say kids, the players out there doing things that they kind of enjoy, because football is not always enjoyable at all. It's not. Sometimes it's not enjoyable at all. Sometimes it is when you let kids compete. He does that. But as far as the quarterbacks go, this is what it comes down to, Happer. If I was going to the scrimmage tomorrow, if we were allowed to do that, the thing that I would watch is interceptions. I mean, that would be the number one thing that I would be watching for. Interceptions, near interceptions, balls that were poorly thrown. And because that's what held the team back. And that's what you wonder about with these young guys, decision making with the ball. So there's a lot of other things that will go into whether that team is successful or not. But the number one thing I'd be watching for is how many picks they throw.
Yeah. Don't you think, I mean, with either one of those guys, they're in a situation where, I mean, it should be a lot cleaner than it was a year ago, or are you still kind of wait and see on both of them?
No, I'm not wait and see. I'm not wait and see at all, Happer. I mean, last year's quarterbacks threw 10, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 10 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. What kind of ratio is that?
It's a bad one.
Yeah. How do you win 5 games with that? Why would you expect to go to a bowl game if your quarterback position produced 10 touchdown passes and 16 picks? I mean, it's obtuse. You can't compete like that. So yeah, I mean, they have to be better. 16-10 isn't good. 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. That's not good. But that'd be, at least you'd reverse it, and that seems doable. It should be doable. 16-10. You're not getting very high level play.
Yeah.
It's 16-10. 10-16 is miserable. So yeah, I would think. I mean, I can't believe the quarterback play would be worse.
I agree.
Yeah, it would be startling if it's worse. You'd have a lot of problems if it's worse. Okay, we're gonna have a lot of problems come fall.
A lot of problems if it's worse. Yeah, a
lot if it's worse, because it means there's no bowl. It means, oh God, I don't even want to think about it. Let's not think about it.
So like, that leads you to believe, and not only the quarterbacks that they have, that group's going to be better, but we've heard conversation about wide receivers that are emerging. A couple of those guys as well. They need to kind of get, honed in on running backs and what they're going to do in the run game as well. Like if you start following that thread, all of a sudden you could start getting pretty optimistic when you pair it with what their defense might have this year as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the receiver position really looks markedly better right now already. It does. I mean, even that short snippet the other day, you saw new faces making plays. Nayor had a really good Tuesday. That day the media was there. That was a big day for Isaiah Nayor. And, Ja'Cory Barney flashed. Ja'Cory Barney's emerged on the scene. Demetrius Bell. Those are guys that we didn't really know going into spring, even if those guys would pop. And, you're through 8 practices and they've already popped. Like guys that you can imagine being part of the rotation. So, and then you have the holdovers, which are pretty good guys. Jalen Lloyd is the guy that you put number 1 among the returners. Malachi Coleman looks good. He's in a green jersey, though. He really looks good catching ball's in pat and go, but he can't do much else because of an injury. But man, he looks good. He looks. I mean, he's got the world at his fingertips. If he just if he puts it all together. Jaden Doss, I love him. I think he could be a really good player. So they should have 6 or 7 or 8 guys that you feel pretty good about. But the number one is Banks. I mean, I think Banks would be your number one guy.
Steve Sipple, HuskerOnline.com. All right, Sipple, enjoy your weekend. What's on tap this weekend? We're supposed to get very good weather.
Yeah, I'm getting on the hog here shortly and heading to Manawa. Family stuff, Lake Manawa.
Wave to us as you drive through.
Okay. I don't know that I'll go that way. I get off on L Street and whip down L, then go over that Memorial Bridge right into Manawa. But then tomorrow I got to work, and I haven't even thought about Sunday.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you'll be busy. That's a good thing.
Pretty busy, Happer. Hey, thanks again for adjusting your schedule. I appreciate it.
Anytime. See you later.
All right, see you later.
Steve Sipple of HuskerOnline.com.
Live to ride, ride to live.
He's going to whip down L Street. Got over that Memorial Bridge. Get over there. People don't use the Memorial Bridge around here.
Really don't.
No, we use the old I-80 bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You get to Manawa. But you got to take the scenic route. You're Steve Sipple, and you're on the hog.
I believe he did drop a Manawa, Lake Manawa.
Manawa. Like yeah. He also did the thing. And there might be a podcast out there that would appreciate this. He did the thing where he said he wasn't sure about a very specific stat, but then named it exactly. Where he's like, I think it was 16 interceptions and 10 touchdowns, something like that. I'm positive that was exactly correct. I'll check it real quick just to make sure. Nebraska quarterbacks stats last year: Heinrich Harburg, Chubba, Jeff Sims threw a grand total of 10 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. Something like that. I don't even know if that's right.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's right.
Check my math on that.
Yep. Nope. Sipple, you're exactly correct. That's right. All right. Poll questions tell you what to watch on 1620 The Zone.
For the Jays, the Huskers, and even you Jayskers, we are 1620 The Zone.